today Rinpoche showed us how Buddha Shakyamuni's teaching on dependent origination is truly the king of all of the pronouncements that he gave. So, no, yo Mario? Oh, okay. The Tambo Chujugi Gune. Demba.
The Chebalas.
Jeba Sheba Dunduo. Okay.
No Demba the Jeba Sheba Dundu was more than
Okay.
that number the no Demba the rest is that do Demba. Kanji Zishi Sumayi, Chenton Tebalana me, Jawatin Japan Jones, Kambaje, or the Kambaje, or the Chuju do Dembas, and Shajaman Budala to be good, then do be done that my deduction somebody else.
Okay. The Yanjer Surinam Rinpoche, the
Kanji Zishi Sumayi, Chenton Tebalana me, Jawatin Japan Musician to Talandu Kambajero, Solokaji, or the Chuju do Dembares, then they do be done. Then it to be done that my deduction somebody's Shajatubal Chuba Jubares, and then Jubares.
less so.
What things are
Okay. So again, we're looking at Lama Tsongkhapa's In Praise of Dependent Origination, and specifically the commentary by Junu Jetsun Drapa Shidrup, and we're using that and bringing some of it into English that we can. And it begins, if we look at the root text in Praise of Dependent Origination, it says, "He who speaks on the basis of seeing, this makes him a knower and a teacher unexcelled. I bow to you, O conqueror, you who saw dependent origination and taught it." So we see there's two categories that we're going to have: the praise to the Buddha for teaching dependent origination, and then the reason for composition and dedication. Under the first category, we have the expression of worship, and we really have a summary of all of the meaning that's going to be contained within the text itself. He who speaks on the basis of seeing, this makes him a knower and teacher unexcelled. I bow to you, O conqueror, you who saw dependent origination and taught it. So this goes under this first category of the expression of worship, and we find all of this, all of the points of the entire text summarized there. Digsun Rinpoche.
Ta kanji zishi sungwa chento teba lana me shi because kanla chuba jusa ke shacha tuba dunga zumbares. Shacha dunga zumbares. Jawad tenjin teba ju zishin tuba talan ju siya tegu wate ne tamba tamba nyi ji te tata tebu tuyu nga zungwas. Ta shama nyi ji Niba rawa, Niba.
Jeba Sheba.
Niba yun ten jis. Niba sungpa rawa. Niba yun ten tenbi tenpa la tueba osa. Jawa tenjin treba ju zishin tuba talan du jebe.
Oh, okay.
Yun ten tenbi.
Less so.
Shata tuba la tueba res, chupa juba res.
Less so.
Talan du osa.
So here we find the expression of worship in the first stanza, where we express the excellent qualities of the teacher and the teaching within the first stanza.
Ni ta ni ba tebi ju sen ta teba ngo ni ji Niba Tubi Jusen, the Tubango Jeba 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 the Nirendua,
Lesso.
Tubi Jusen, Tubango Niso,
Lesso.
that Tubi Jusen, that is the new one. Tende Sheba, Tembi Hibu Tembas, Tende Sheba de Shajaman Buddha, Tembak in Hebrews, Hibu Temba, Tende Jugune, Tubang Haba, Tende Jugun. Shajatubal Tuba, the Tubagon on the Ashuris.
Praise Lesso.
What did song those about
Lesso, new. Okay, so in the second category, so we're looking at the main body. Again, there's the expression of worship, there's the expanded explanation, and then there's the summary. So the first category of the expression of worship, we find the excellent qualities of the teacher and the teaching. The second category is the expanded explanation. And in this context, we find there are two categories, reason for the praise, and then the actual praise itself. And then the first category of the reason for the praise, we have two categories. The teaching of dependent origination is the essence or the heart of the teachings. And then the next category is praise of that praise. So it's praising the praise. So it's such a praiseworthy thing, it's praising the actual idea of praising it. So not to be, double up on it, but it is doubled up on. And if you look at it in terms of the Tibetan, it's really a praise of the praise. So again, this is the second category. Two categories, the reason for the praise, the actual praise. And then the first category, reason for praise, having two categories. The teaching of dependent origination is the essence of the teaching, and then praise of the praise. So anyone who's following in that context. Okay, Digsung Rinpoche. Jutsen.
Tende Sheba, Tembi Hibu Tembas.
Lesso.
Tende Sheba, the Shajaman Buddha, Tembi Hibu Temba, Tende Jugune, Tuba non Tende Jugun Tuba de Ashuris. Haba was. That Tombune Tende Sheba, Tembi Hibu Temba, Canesson was, Denison was.
Lesso.
Didn't go back in but he is all married. Kanji Tony to Duba, Tangent of Banjon, the Sulutan Temba he, Tangent of Banjon, Church, Tembi Nando, Setagon Chumin Juros, what takes on Guares. That didn't go back in passes, that didn't go back in Bangaso, Duare to and then Gasson, Dunduson 2 euro, the Sul Chega Nachi 2 euro, what the Sul Ginello, the Majinian Guba, Jinian Guba Geneva, and the Chega Duare to the Chega Nachi 2 euro, Mobu euro. He saw the Garisana, Mariba the Radiaris, Mariba Latene, Lesa, Tiwangi. Mariba on your Muji Lesa and Duari to Kudu. These are Marite. Kanji told you to do what China Deba Maruba told you. Deba Maruba told you what the China Deba Desi Mariba do the rest.
Lesso.
Taba do my Meshesuna, Drenzilu do the double rest.
Okay. Okay, so now we get into the actual body of the text. So what is the, we're looking at the reason for the praise. Under this category, again, the teaching of dependent origination is the essence of the teachings. Why is it the essence of the teachings? So let's read the two stanzas that here we're referring to. Whatever degenerations there are in the world, the root of all these is ignorance. You taught that it is dependent origination, the seeing of which will undo this ignorance. So how can an intelligent person not comprehend that this path of dependent origination is the essential point of your teaching, or the essence of your teaching? So these are the two stanzas. So when we go to the first line, it states, whatever degenerations there are in the world. So this is referring to the various downfalls of cyclic existence. If we look at the realms of cyclic existence, there are six realms of hell, hungry ghost, animal, human, demigod and God, and we look at the various types of suffering that occur in the realms of cyclic existence, such as the suffering of birth, suffering of aging, suffering of sickness, and suffering of death. And so all of these various types of suffering that are experienced within cyclic existence have at their root ignorance. So if we look at what all of these sufferings depend on, we'll find that they depend upon ignorance. So what happens is having this ignorance as the root, the afflictions then create action, and this action is contaminated action, which then gives rise to rebirth in cyclic existence. So it is this ignorance that gives rise to the cycle in the first place. So whatever degenerations there are in the world, whatever sufferings, whatever negativities, whatever plagues cyclic existence, the root of all of these is ignorance. You taught that it is dependent origination, the seeing of which will undo the ignorance. So it is the ignorance that grasps at phenomena as being truly established that is the root that we're speaking of. So in dependence upon it, this root grasping, these afflictions that are created, and then karma or action that is engaged in, which is contaminated, and then we have cyclic existence. The only way to reverse that, or the only opponent to that process, is the understanding that phenomena is not truly established. Just like the example where in a dimly lit room, one can mistake a rope for a snake. And the only thing which will undo that mistaken view that it is a snake is the correct view that it is a rope. And likewise, once one has the correct view that recognizes phenomena are not truly established, then this correct view serves to negate, get rid of, abandon the incorrect view which grasps at phenomena as being truly established and is the root of cyclic existence. So here it's saying that seeing dependent origination will undo cyclic existence. Diksan.
Tizo Mari tse Mari badal tene chi Mari bala lende la mu Mari badang.
Lesso.
Te kona ni la mu Mari ba ni yure.
Okay.
Ni na ne de shemal ko gores. Te kona ni la mu Mari ba. Denzil ko dro.
Lesso. So then the commentary says, when we speak of this general ignorance, there are actually two categories. There is the ignorance of karma and its result, or action and their consequences. Maybe I should start using English always for that. Action and its results or consequences. And then we have the secondary type of ignorance, which is ignorance of the nature, or the nature, ignorance of the nature. So here are the two kinds of ignorance that are possible, and here we're speaking of the ignorance of the nature. Okay, Disa.
Tande Mariba Lendela Mariba, the Tekuna Mariba Niganone, Tekuna Nilabo Mariba, the Gogores, the Tara Niganone, Tall Gogores, that Tekuna Nilabo Mariba Tara Nikaresana, Jusen la Tende Debatuban Zibulodan, Jusen la Matuba Debatu Zibuluni Urua, Jusen la Matuba Debatu Zibulo Chawaje, Jusen la Tende. That's
cool. Then a Rapa Dayanda. Tramo.
Rapa is that Jusen la tene debatu banzin ke juro. Chuna debatu sheda mo ta.
Gongel me pachi.
Chuna debatu bare yinde jujen jebe.
Lesso. Artificial.
What the shuru bazu be be shelo marba.
Less.
Jujen la tene jeba yinde on debatu bare. Ko jusen la tene debatu banzin woro. The kunta la cha rapa. Jusen la mate ba ganga shu debatu banzin ke lo leje cha. What the
Okay. So when we look at the grasping, Denzin Layena Chao. Okay, so when we look at the different categories at grasping at true establishment, there are two. There is the subtle grasping at true establishment and coarse grasping at true establishment. And these correspond to the natural and artificial contaminants. Are they? The Rinpoche Puke Ming the Nyomon Lenche.
Tenzin
Okay. Okay, so it's merely just the word. Artificial, okay, so the artificial grasping, I just want to get all these words exactly correct. So we have that which, the grasping at true establishment, which comes about through reason, comes about through using a sign to bring forth the conclusion. For instance, the non-Buddhist schools. Okay, so for instance, the non-Buddhist schools conclude that because things arise through causes and conditions, they function, they're naturally, that shows their true nature, that shows their true establishment. So they utilize a sign to come up with the wrong conclusion. So this is called an artificial grasping at true establishment. Then there is the non-artificial or the natural grasping, which does not require this use of reasoning to arrive at. And when we're looking at the kind of ignorance, and specifically the grasping that we're speaking of, it's specifically the grasping that is the natural type. And then I asked Rinpoche was, is there this natural and artificial in relation to all the afflictions? And Rinpoche said, yeah, you can say natural and artificial afflictions, but this is more specific. This is natural and artificial grasping. So afflictions would be broad, and this is, there's specificity or specific here, where we're speaking of only the grasping, naturally and artificially. Okay, Selpo Lobsang Rinpoche.
Ta kajigo tiza mari dise mariba ne Sena ge ngobula chabe sena la lagdos sena la danzi to debanes te chuderes te danzi mares te la danzi to sena danzi insigente teba chechung ki tseden jung kanle jamashi be
They are gare
teba chimbi jung to teme jung chechung kanle jang odi sena danzi insonsa yo mares.
Oh, I see.
Mashi bishi te mares ta.
The Kasakala Yomari. Okay.
Less,
okay. So then it says in the commentary that there are those who have come up with the wrong understanding and believe that it is miserliness that we're speaking of here. That miserliness is the grasping at true establishment. But we can't, it says in this, find any source, whether the Mahayana or Hinayana, it's not to be found. So this is an incorrect thought which has no basis for its conclusion, where it puts miserliness in as the same negativity as this grasping. So it's just stating that there are those who have incorrectly concluded this, and this point cannot be found in Scripture, Hinayana or Mahayana. Disum. Gamba
Jung de Marbe. Teselo no temba I tenji raba jung yu lang se jung se de Marbe. Tenji raba jung yu lang jung sun ba yu des. Tendi la tumo wa tumo ma ba ni yo res.
Tendi
tumo ma ba ni je.
Lesso.
Ne chedan ju du na tendi mi chap. Duje ina tendi re, duma she ina tendi re. Tendi ma mi chu ji sha yo ma res. Duje tu kanga jujen la tembe tendi to daje la tembe tendi ni ka res. Duje ina jujen la tembe tendi ta daje la tembe tendi ni ka mi chas.
Okay, that's
duma she to kanga daje la tembe tendi ji bu res.
Duje dan duma je.
Taba to mataba.
Lesso. De kanga lago duje dan duma je. Kanga
Jibaroda.
Kanga Dendel died on Dendel. Then Ju Chen,
Usually then Luigi Matuyo
less so. Then the Tumo and Tumo Mayimba Gare.
Allah so that
The Yanjasuran
Tendi
Kanga
Tumu Ni Yagandua.
less so.
Tendi Tumu Ni Ganana, Rangi Chashila, Tene Drubana,
Less
Tumu
so.
Tendi is.
Okay.
Rangi Chashila Tene Druba.
Ju Chen.
Dujin Dumashi Karina, Chashila Tene Druba.
Okay.
Tumu Tendi is. That
Huh?
Tumu Maybe Tendi Tamara, Tundan. Medan, Tubatan Jabi, Turune, Tumu Maybe, Tendi
Ale.
Dependence,
Uma.
Tumu Maybe, Tendi, what the Medad.
Ale.
Taju Tumu Maybe Tendi Nabudu.
Okay.
Uma
They conquered.
Tajua.
Less so.
Uma Taju, Chukolo, Medan Datan Jaba is. And Rabura Church, to be make Tazan, to be Tazan Ayin. Chukolo, make Tazan Ayin. Chabayo Marbesana, Rabura to be Tazan, the Tazan to Yomaris. The Mashi Chukolo to be Tazan to Yobaris. Tazan to Yoris, Chabateris, Rabunga, the Chutanji, to be Tazan in Chibare, to be Tazan to Yomel Chabayoris. Rabunga to be Tazan to Yomare. The Mashi Chutanji to be Tazan to Yoris. Medan, to be Tobazanje, Jabi Turune, Tumumai Vitendis.
Okay. So when we look at dependent origination, there are different ways to categorize it. There are the ways of dependent origination that comes about through causes and conditions, and dependent origination through establishment. So if it is a dependent origination through establishment, it's necessarily, so let me try that again. If it is compound phenomenon or uncompounded phenomenon, it is necessarily dependent origination through establishment. So we find that all phenomena are pervaded by this. They all have this dependent origination through establishment. But when we look at dependent origination through causes and conditions, or that comings about through causes and conditions, this is specifically to speaking to compound phenomenon. Uncompounded phenomenon or permanent phenomenon categorically can't fall under this because it isn't cause. There aren't causes and conditions, but it does fall under the category of dependent origination through establishment, a collection of parts that come together and then make up this object. So this is one way to distinguish the types of dependent origination. It's something like prachika samuppada. When you look at the Sanskrit, it's this big debate that goes on. So there are these two different types of dependent origination. Another way, a more subtle way of looking at it, is common and uncommon dependent origination according to schools. So we have the common dependent origination, which is the establishment through a collection, which is concurred throughout the schools, which what we find to be an uncommon dependent origination is this coming into being through nominal designation, through the naming process, that which we find in the Middle Way Consequence School, where it states that things come into being through this collection that's then just nominally designated as this or that. So this basis of designation and the naming of it, and that bringing it into being, is the uncommon type of dependent origination that we would speak of in the consequence school, whereas the dependent origination of a collection is something that would be concordant throughout all of the schools. And there's a term, I don't have it. Okay. We'll have to get to that next time. But there's an actual specific term when we're looking at this naming process. And the one of the critiques is that, okay, so, well, then the subject, a rabbit with horns, you're saying, can be established because it can be named. The end analysis of that is that anything can be named anything, but that doesn't mean that it's A, a correct name, and B, that basis even exists or is possible. So a rabbit with horns doesn't exist. There is no such thing as a rabbit with horns. So it's not a suitable basis to be named. So the basis of designation is very important. It has to be suitable to be named what it's being named. So there's this terminological suitability. So when we as a translator's note, there are these different ways in the text that you can say, like if a group of people all in the world concur that this thing is called a this, then that's a suitable name for it. But then there are these other cases where they call, for instance, your dog is named something that, you know, he or she isn't. Like sometimes they call a dog a lion. This is all translator's note. That is just a naming of it, but it's not actually thought of as a lion itself. So when something's just named something that doesn't really bring its meaning into it, that's one way of naming, but that isn't a correct basis of designation. So the correct basis of designation for the name is of the utmost importance in this uncommon dependent origination. So that you can't name anything, and that's the critique, is that if it's just the name, then anything can be anything, and that there is this basis of designation has to be suitable. So there's better vocabulary around this I'll bring to the table later, but that's the uncommon type. Okay.
Oh, jeta de mari ba nga ta nga yo nya be kanza tas kanza de ba tu de ji de kanza chen ji kanza ja ru sna nga ta nga yo wa rangon ru ba ji ba lu de ne kanza ga dan ji ja gu res nga sna ai se de mar ba nga yo sna la ba nga yi ba khamba nga yi ba mo ta nga yi bi cha de ba tu lu de nga yo was what the ngayo what never to be lote kaza danili ja gures nga rangon to be nga ji ro ta ngayo asna laba ngayi ba
Okay.
rangon to be ba what the ngayo to kaza danili de mare peshin isha tun rabundu
Nga da nga ewa nika kansak dazin?
nga da ngayo rangon to be zimba kaza danili ja
Okay.
gures
The pension. Okay.
peshin tun rabundu
Okay. Dazin. So. Then Marika Bajurwa. Okay. So what is this, when we're looking at the ignorance, and we're looking further to what the ignorance grasps at, the grasping at the true establishment of I and mine is the first apprehension. So this I and mine. And so the grasping at I is the ego, I am truly established. And then mine isn't my arm the way you would think. It's the arm is me. So that's the grasping at mine. It's this belief that the arm is me, the leg is me. It isn't that the leg is mine. There isn't this separation when we're speaking of this. It's the arm is me. So when we're looking at what we're talking about grasping-wise, it's literally believing that this arm is me. I am me. I am truly established. This arm that's me is truly established. So that's the proper way to look at it. This arm that's me is truly established. I am truly established. So mine is anything that I consider mine that's me. Like so, yeah. So you could argue this in many ways. Digs. Okay, ngada nga ewa
다 라바 나이 라바 대바도 좀 취지 단지
So
나이 라바
if we're saying my hand, then this is a grasping at phenomena as being truly established. So if we're looking at separately, we're saying grasping at my hand, that's grasping at phenomena being truly
라바 나이
established.
임바 대바도 좀 간사가 단지
But if we're saying that the arm is me, then this becomes, and we're grasping at that, then this becomes grasping at person as being truly established. So there's these two categories, grasping at phenomena and grasping at person. So as soon as we say grasping at I or mine, in the sense that the arm is me, then this becomes person. If we're saying my arm, this becomes phenomena. So if you understand this one subject, then you can put it to all the other subjects quite easily. The my leg, the leg is me. So when you look at arm, I and mine, arm is me, leg is me. We begin to be able to understand what it all means. With one subject, we just use it with all the others.
Medao to be doesn't jabi trobane tumo mai bi tende jude de la tutin de shina mongos
Kabaret list.
ngaba.
Okay. Wisdom meditating.
Medao to be doesn't jabi tu la tumo mai bi tende jude de la tutin de shina mongos raju badan tanjo naulul de manda ise.
So when we Rinpoche, kabar uma ngapa de gombo de kabar
Ngol marangol
gula
Medao to be doesn't jabi tu
Okay,
ne
gonga me
tumo mai
bachi.
bi tende jude
Okay.
de la tutin de shina mongos.
Okay. So this uncommon dependent origination that we're speaking of is this naming on a basis of designation that then brings things into being. So this is the uncommon dependent origination, the meaning of the uncommon dependent origination. Okay, Disa.
다 어디네
And Lung.
댄데지 된통이 차수 도번 주됐어. 댄데지 된통이 댄데 이미 주선 주는 대바 마루가 세수나 안는 대살로서 주가 도는 그래서
So if we are able
도번 주대 수송도 저는 고물루지 사와셔를레스
Lesso.
마린 가번 좋았네. 셰베더니 공부하고스
Lesso.
주는 대바 주는데 대코나니는 마리바 댄싱 가번 좋았네.
Lesso.
셰베더니 공부서 주는 대바 마루베시베 나 돈이 공부 따지레스 돈이
맞아.
공수나 안 와데 등가는 그래서
Lesso.
대니 공부하고스
So then it says that this once one understands the meaning of dependent origination, then it serves as an opponent to the attachment and so forth. And then we find a quote from Nagarjuna's root wisdom text where it says the wisdom meditating on this is what the wisdom meditate. Okay, so the wisdom meditating on this is what annihilates ignorance. So meditating on this is referring to dependent origination. So the wisdom arisen from meditating on this annihilates ignorance, is the annihilator of ignorance. So that's from the root wisdom text. Lesso?
다유 오만주바르스 오만주바양 대시 땡중 리반디네 땅에 저타다 주베시스 오만주바 디시르 땡데 임비 주센지 땡데 임비 땅다 들라데네 땡데 리반디네 땅에 저타다 주베시스
네,
땅에 주는 다바주는 댄진로서부터 수근걸는 그래서 주버시 제송비
So then we find in Chandra Kirti's Madhyamika Avatara, where it says that it's this this analysis or understanding of dependent origination that is able to destroy all bad views. So destroy all bad views or bad mistaken views. So we find this in the Chandrakirti's Madhyamika Avatara, the entrance to the middle way. Diksa.
Oje tatan ma ta kaso gore. Ludu dan dembe keba yes, ludu dan dembe. Ludu dan dembe keba ye. Tenjin da ban ju tan tong yu. Tenjin da ban ju tan to bi la tenis. Mo bu che dembe ne tan ni bo. Ta tu ni do. Chuje da du kong du che ba man ju de. Ku dun ju gore se keba ye na. chuna dabo manduba shibi lo de wate sanji ki tenbi nyebu yinba de shen gres ne
Leso. Lo drudang.
cheta kondu chumi jodun kondu chugres
Leso. Sildu.
keba yina kandar meshe de shegres
Leso.
wate sayaj marbe da cheta kondu chumi jodun jogres tenbi nyebu kondu chuban joro Tēyāng kūdō wā shē nās, kāchī shē lā wā shē lā, tē chī shē lā, mē shē māyī kā juē nē, dūdōng lā shē bā pāng bā shēn tē, dā rā shēn lā zhā wā shā wōs. Tā tēne wā tē kūdō wā shē lā, kāchī kā tsamā sā nō wā tēn rā kā rō tēn rā pā rē sā tā, kē bā chī kā tē ngā tē shē kā mū tō, shē kā mē sā lā nā, anu ku shebat gogro ta tanda bures kudwa shena kaji shelhawa shelas
Kashi shela shela.
Easy understand.
Okay.
Shela ne teji chela zamazan de meshisla na anu ku sheba gogro was 그 건가 시에가 메시바 가요 말에 그 다가 좀 세대래서 시바 거는 그래서 많이가 주네 도전라 시바 폼바 gente 더 젠라 자로스 된다고 젠달래 뭐고 주어레스 그 그래서다.
Okay, so what it says here is that this last part, I'm not exactly clear. It's a joke though. So it says that all of the great scholars, such as Nagarjuna and the rest, concur that this dependent teaching of dependent origination is truly the essence of all of the pathways taught by Lord Buddha. So it's the essence of everything that was ever taught by Lord Buddha. And then it says that some say that if you don't know it, if you don't know this, it's because you don't know it. It's something like that. It's like something to the effect, and I might be completely wrong, but it's written all in not debate type language. It's almost like if you don't know it, if you don't know this as a fact, it's because you don't know. It's like you are ignorant almost, and that means that you need to know something, almost like it. So that's okay. Diksa.
Tomo mai be tende to be lante tembi nyebures tembi nyebu ba su song du na ngolo du shedin le song dos shedin le tenjin de ban jong de jawai song ge zui jeba samu de she song bi sheros or the compte dans le shedin long.
Less so. And then at the end here, we find another. It says that common and uncommon dependent origination are the essence of what was taught and realized, taught and realized as paths. And then we find from the Nagarjuna's letter to a friend, it says that interdependence is the king. something to the effect, and I can find it right at break, I know where it is, that this profound view of dependent origination is the king of all pronouncements. So this is just showing Nagarjuna's reverence for this teaching on dependent origination and showing that it really is the essence. So it talks about it being the king in the letter to a friend. Okay, Lobsang Rinpoche.
Nipa tubi jusen tala, tendi shiba tenbi shiba tenba tsa ne, ta tendi jugu ne, tuba ngabas. Tendi jugu ne, tuba ngaba tere ngadwa. Tuba ngaba tuwa tene re, nipa tendi jugu ne, tuba ngaba. Tata la nangun chu la, tubi gu ne sushi ki, tendi jugu sumba le, ngoza juba chishi nyes. Wate tendi jugu ne, tuba ngaba tene bara. Tuba gu nan tendi sumba gu ne, tuba shiraga yabu res. Tata la nangun chu la, shaja man buddha chu la, tubi gu ne sushi ki, tendi jugu sumba les, shaja man buddha la tuba pyoke mambu yuwa re. Tendi sumba gu ne tuba pyoke yashu res. Tendi jugu sumba le, ngoza juba chishi nyega ma res, te yashu res.
So let's read number 4. So now we've moved on. So when we're looking at the, going back to the outline, we are at the second category, which is the expanded explanation. Under the expanded explanation, there are 2 categories, reason for praise and actual praise. Under the category of reason for praise, there are 2 categories. The teaching of dependent origination is the essence of the teachings, so that we've completed. So that section is done. Now we move on to the praise of the praise. Praising this praise. Okay, so this is stanza number 4. This being so, who will find, O Savior, a more wonderful way to praise you than to praise you for having taught this origination through dependence? So when we look at all of the topics that could be praised, this is the highest, most noteworthy object of praise. So here, this is a praise of the praise. So it's that's really it. That's no more to really expand upon without just repeating it in 2 or 3 different ways. But it's just praising this praise. The potency of what is being praised is praised for praising it. Okay, let's take a short break and we'll be right back. Tearing Subble NGK, you're not.
Oh, boss. That was us.
This dependent origination is the most cherished and profound treasure of the Nyingma's speech. I believe that's, here they're translating the king as treasure. So I'll have to look it up further, but I think that's from the letter to a friend. Okay, so now we're at the praise of the praise.
Tendi jugune toba ngaba tala ni je toba shida toba ni je toba tala songre do song toba song le tombo kangan je la ra le ba te rangi je do shi song de le ya semble le do sun ji je so te tombo song no tombo tere ja.
Okay, that's good.
Toba tala song no tombo kangan chen la ra le ba te raji che don she suan de le ya se bele nu su ji she de
then the Nipatsar. Okay. Okay, then in Rinpoche, Chiran the Jepa Sheba, the Nipa La Ni, Chia Dupa Dong Shedrag, they live so?
Wadare
Okay, the Ngapa. Okay, so
Chir
now,
Deba Dan Shida Deba Nyi Je,
okay, less so.
Damba Shid Deba La Song Re Dua.
Less so.
Song
Sum
Na
Yuri.
Damba Tere Kangan Chen La Ra Le Ba, Tete Rajin Che Dong She, Song An De Le Ya Zan Bi Len Dong Tsun Che She Yus.
Less so.
Dongpa Nyim Hawa Yen Le, Cheba Tu Shoba Nga Bas. Dongpa Nyim Cheba Tu Nga Ba, Tende Song Shin, Tende Zishin Song Tsu, Ten Du Do, Ten Ba, Song Tere Do Song. Toni Mawa, Yen Le Cheba Tu Shoba Nga Bas.
Okay, I see.
Toni Makente, Mawa Yen Le Cheba Tu Pa Ba, Dangpa Je, Tende Zishin Song Bi Tsu Nye Ba Je, Ten Du Ten Ba, Song Ba Zen Wa, Song Ba Je, Ta Dangpo, Tende Song Ba, Len Dong Ji Chu Do, Nga Ba, Teni Treba, Ole, Dangpo De La, Teni Treba Jeje De Ten Ba Dang, Tende Treba Nyi Chu Do, Nga Ba Os, Dangpo Le Nyi Ren Wa, Teni Treba Jeje Do Ten Ba Je, Toni Tu Bi Shira Da Nga Te Treba Denzin Jeje Re Dro, Denzin Jeje. Taba Druma Yima Shi Lo De Denzin Jeje Re Dro. Treba Jeje Do Ten Ba. Tende Tenba Nyi Chu Do Nga Bas. Tende Tenba Do De Suwangan Chu Do Juba Res, Nga Bas. Nyi Je. Ta Dangpo, Teni Treba Jeje Do Tenba Dro. Teni Treba Jeje Do Tenba Dangpo Ne, Kangan Chen La Ra Le Ba, Shesu Shul Ka Je Des. Je De, Kangan Chen La Ra Le Ba, Tete Rajin Che Tong She, Suwan De Le Ya Zen Bi, Len Du Tsun Chi Shi Yus, O Tere Do Ta, Dangpo Te Yin Ba, Sung Na Dangpo Tere Do. Kangan Chen La Ra Le Ba, Du Je Tang Du Ma Shi Kangan, Chen La Ra Le Ba, Chen La Ra Le Ba San Du Je De Kon Ma Ran Du Je,
Less so.
Kangan Chen La Ra Le Ba, Chen Le Ra Le Ba Yin Zang, Chen Le Tu Ba Yin Zang, Te Rajin Chi Du Bi Tong Ba Res, Tete Rajin Che Tong She, Suwan De Le, Jujen La Tenbi Tende Yin Bi Jusen Che, Tenpa Ma Ru Ba Song Ba De Ya Shu Res, De Le Ya Chen Bi, Len Du Tsun Chi She Du Yo Ma Res, Jujen La Tenbi Tende Yin Bi Jusen Chu Na Tenpa Ma Ru Ba Song Ba De, Le Shu Res, De Le Ya Bi, Den Song Yo Ma Res, Song De Le Ya Chen Bi, Len Du Tsun Chi She, Toni Ma Wa Yen Le, Cheba Tu Shu Ba Nga Bas, Tende Song Tu, Ten Du Ten Ba Song, Dangpo Ne Kangan Chen La Ra Le Ba Ta Te Te Ren Dua, Kangan Chen La Ra Le, Kangan Chen La, Tende Song Ba, Len Dong Chi Chu Do Nga Ba, Teni Treba Jeje Ten Ba, Ten Du Ten Ba Chu Do Nga Ba Wo, Dangpo Ne Kangan Chen La Ra Le Ba, She Su, Kamba She Tuen Des, Kamba She, Kangan Chen La Ra Le Ba She Ten Ba, Kamba She Te Ke Tuen Du Wo Sir Ta, Tuen De, Tuen Ba Chu Chi She Ne, Chu Kang Tang Kang, Rang Ke Ju Chen La Ra Le Ba Te, Tuen Ne, Juan, Kang Yin Ba Te Tang, Te Rajin Chi Chu Bi, Tong She, Koyu Song Ba, De Le, La Ba Ya Chen Ba Te, Ngon Sa Men Tu Shong Yu, Len Dong Che Chu Ne, Yen Chi Shi Yu De Men To Os, Len Du Tsun Chi Shi Yu Se O Te Ba Te Ren Dua, Te Tsen De,
Itambo.
Tene Rajin Chi Tong Ba, Tong Ni Tuen Bi, Song Ro Yen Le, Cheba Tu Pa Ba Te Ba Os, Wa Te Ke Ka Ten Go Res Na, Rajin Chi Tong Bi, Tong Ni Tuen Bi, Song Ro Rangi to no so jeni du son to marbe. Jeni du son la so to ngalo chuna de ba maru ba tembe shiro ni bo. Ha so to ne rangi to be tomba tendro. Son ro jen le chaba to ba res. Tene rangi ji tombe toni sombe son ro nas shiro ni bo la so ba.
Less
Ha
so.
so la so ba.
Less so.
Son ro jen le chaba to ba res. Lui de ne temps. Nunga bi de no to sul chaba to ba res. Do de ne o to sul chaba to ba imbare.
Do
Tembo.
Okay, sutra basket.
Ngo cha ta ya chen ji da ne. Shin kha ba tam he ba so la. Jo ba yue jang.
Oh, they
Ngo cha jo ba ji yin sa de. Kha jo ji ya le go ya yo ga re. Pha ra ta ya le go ya yo ga re. Jo ba yue jang. De ne. Tong bi won de je ba wos. De tong bi won de je ba. De tong bi won de je ba. Raji de sunro ne chaba de ba den ba wo. Tong bu ga re ta.
got it. The long is dole.
Tong bu la sun.
Tambo
Tende sun
lasam.
ba le no ju chu dong ha ba. Ji je.
Less so. The tambo.
Ni ba
Kanga
de je
tambo.
den ba.
Nipa
Ni ba
kabiare.
je. Tende den ba chu dong ha ba sun ba de ro. Song
Ale.
je. Tong bu gang gang jen la ra le ba da ge de ro dong go de re do. Gang gang jen la ra le ba.
The daranjingi.
Gang gang jen la ra le ba de de rang jin je dong je. Song de le ya sen be le no tun ji je. Song non tang bu de re do. Tang bu de je. Ta ni ba.
Rinpoche Tetsuko gongel me pachi. Gangisana the ngamang ezuson. The tambo the domba ni mawa shenle jepa shupa ngapa. The sum the ngapa
Ngapa
chi.
je.
Dendel
Tende
zijing zung su
ni
ni
ba je. Du
the bao
du den ba.
sumba.
Sumba ro.
Then a tambo la sum.
Tang bu la song re do.
Okay, they ezuson.
Tang bu la song ro. Tende zi jin song bi chu de la song.
Less so.
Tende song ba le do ju chu dong ha ba tang bu je. Teni zhe ba jue ji den ba ni ba je.
Nipa kab the
Jue ji du den ba. Tende den ba. Den ba ni chu dong ha ba. O tang bu de la song na song ba de re do. Ta tang bu.
tambo. Okay, the tambo.
Gang gang jen la ra le ba de de ra ji da ge de re.
Less
Gang
so.
gang jen la je su kang ba je den de.
Less so.
Den ba chue ji she ne.
Less so.
Chue gang ta kang rang ki ju jen la ra le ba de tu ne. Zhong yin ba de dang de. Ra ji ju be tong wo she. Kor yu song. Song ba ku yu song ba.
The
Ku yu
course
song ba.
the Corlo Nipa? The Uma
Koryu-
Corlo?
Koryu.
Uma? Chikshena?
Ku yu song.
Ranju
Kor
dan
yu.
Nee, it's not
Song ba
the
de la.
Uma Core.
La bi ya ten. Ji xue shi. Kor song si. Jena nga su di kor song si na. Da pa ri bi ken len ba. Che pa rang lu la zhu ba. Wa ten ji song ya yo. Di kor song si ya ju yo ro.
Huh.
Wa di yin sa de ka re. Kor song si.
Shape.
Ku yu song si. Ku yu song.
The Uma Chipa. The Uma Tanjor.
Ji gi de ko de ba. Ji gi. Song ba de le. La ba re ya chen ba. Ngo sa men du shong yu len dong. Chu ne. Yen ji xue de men do.
The Kanga Tambo Nangla.
De su dan da dang wo de do. De ne ra jin ji. Dong ba. Dong ni tuen bi song ro nas. Ra jin ji. Dong bi. Dong ni tuen bi song ro ne she ro nyen bo la su tu ma re be.
Less
Ha
so.
su zha.
Less so.
She ro nyen bo la su ba. Sonro jen le chebat fabas.
Leso.
Toni ma tembi katen chula so tusul chebat fabares.
Leso.
Chebat faba temba os. Ngocha tan ya senji draden ngocha chuba chishinyes. Ngocha dradan ya senji drad chetan yagale ko juware dugale ma dujale pepe me shwe dujares. Tendre ko ayoares. Pemba sola juba yejan. Den tambi wonti sheba os. Tambu kareso. Kangan la kasa tende sumba le nu chudu ngabas.
The Loido, the questions from the Loi Jelpo Chiwa, the Loi Jelpo long. Ni raso.
Kangan la rale tede na je du kamba je tende. Tembi she ne chu kan da kan. Jujen la denes. Ta tembi she ne chu kan jujen la tembi tende yi jusen da ba ma ru song ja ba de.
Leso.
Juwa kan yi ba de rajin ji tu ba. Tong she kong to. Tong she kuyu song ko tan ko rajin ji tu tong ba yu den rajin ji tu ba song ba dele sa ba ya chen ba. Mo sa me du shu le do ji tu ne jen ji shi me che de me dos. Ten te zen mu do ta dan da do mu do. Ten rajin ji tong bi tong ni ten bi song ra nas song ra jen le che ba do ba ten ba os ha su zhe zo zo ma ba. Mo sa da ya chen ji da ne she ren ha ba da me ba so la jo ba yue jang ne dang bi wang tu she ba mo sa gdas o de dang bu wang she ba res. Mo sa da ya chen ji da shen ha ba de ba so mo jo ba yue jang ne dang bi wang tu she ba she ren ha ba yin ba ha ba de la go de res ha ba she ren ha ba da me ba so jo ba yue jang de tombi won't she ba won ha bi won't she ba res ha jun ze ya ba shi da res hotel go res ha bi won't she ba wo te ba ne ma ju ba shi bin do les lui je ba ma ju ba shi bin do le kan ji chen le je ba te ma je te la ji na ye ma yi chen la ra le kan ton ba she ke be ton ni she de ba yo yin she son bu gong ba wo
Leso.
what the sul conto sur sta.
Okay, then so mumbo jugu. So we have now completed that section on the praise of the praise, which was the second part of the first category. So when we go back to it, we have three categories: the expression of worship. Under that, there's the reason for praise, and then the actual praise. Under the reason for praise, we have the teaching of dependent origination is the essence of the teachings, and then the praise of the praise. Hold on one second. I'm going to leave it at that and just move on, because we move on to the expanded explanation. There is also this second category, which is under the expression of worship, which is the actual praise. And I see that is category B, which would fall under expression of worship. So I assume that we went over the actual praise in the midst of our commentary. So now we move on to expanded explanation. So expanded explanation, unless that... Rinpoche, ngatsu tandange de sacheda. Then the nipa la ni shedan shedrag.
Temba mawa jen le cheba tu shuba nga ba. Tende ze ju son bu tu, ten du ten son marbe. Tombo la son. Tende somba lendon ju chudu temba chi. Teni truba joji temba. Teni truba joji temba niba tengi somarba. Teni truba
Then
joji
dupi ngu kabiare. Ngama the sache, the tambo, the ena tambo la ena ni. Jutsen dang ngu. The ngatsu jutsen la ena ni. The dendel ni. Then dupi ngu kabiare.
Toba ni mawa yenle cheba chuba ngaba. Tende son
The jutsen dan dupi ngu.
Tende temba sonje tombo la son. Tomba ni mawa yenle cheba chuba ngaba de la son. Tombo tende somba lendon ju chudu ngaba tomba je. Teni truba joji temba niba je. Tende temba chudu ngaba somba dendoa. Nisu kali du na yaja yunguro da.
Then Rinpoche, the Rinpoche dupi ngu. Toga.
Odu
jutsen-
shugu ma yunguro da.
Yine jutsen dang ngu. Jutsen ngatsu tsar. Then dupi ngu. The ribe shidan shedrag. Or the nipa.
Te shugul le ngor, te shugul. Den na
The
sen le
jepa
mamu
sheba.
Na sen le mamu duwa den.
The jepa sheba sache.
Jeba shiva.
Okay, so we're just moving on. This is the expanded explanation. I'm not sure about the actual praise. We went over the praise so in so many different ways, I'm sure it was in there. And now we move on to the expanded explanation. Okay, so the expanded explanation, there are two categories, general and specific. So the general expanded explanation and then specific expanded explanation. And then when we look at the first category, which is general expanded explanation, we find that there are three categories. First, praising the pith of the teacher's pronouncements for its superiority to others. The second category is explanation of dependent origination taught and realized. And then the third category is the summary of that teaching. So these are the three categories that we find under the heading of general. So then we move to that first category of praising the pith of the teacher's pronouncements for its superiority to others, and then we'll find that there are three categories under that. So the first category is the supreme teaching, is the excellent instruction given on dependent origination, the teaching that elaborates on that essence, and the essence of that teaching as the supreme pronouncement. So we will go through these three categories, and let me just get to, let me get back here, 5, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So now, what basically we get into this first category, which is the supreme teaching, is the excellent instruction given on dependent origination. And it goes on to say this stanza. Let me read the stanza again. Whatsoever depends on conditions, that is devoid of intrinsic existence. What excellent instruction can there be more amazing than this proclamation? So whatsoever depends on conditions, that is devoid of intrinsic existence. So here, this is stating that the excellent instruction, this amazing instruction, is the teaching on dependent origination. And it says that this stanza that has been presented explains it, and it's showing how this sign that if things have causes and conditions that are required for them to come into being, then they necessarily dependently originate and therefore are empty. They have this empty nature. So when we look at the pronouncements of the middle way, we see their superiority and their wondrous pronouncements that are made are extremely amazing. And then it says these wondrous teachings that have so that if something, so the teaching that was given by Lord Buddha, that things are empty of having, or devoid of having intrinsic existence, we find in various turnings of the wheel, such as the superior teachings found in the texts such as the Heart Sutra. So we find this middle way pronouncement and the pronouncement of dependent origination in such wondrous, amazing texts as the Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. And then specifically when we look at the baskets, we would say that we would find it in the Sutra basket and possibly Abhidharma, but specifically Sutra basket, we would find the points made on this that are wondrous and amazing. Then it goes on. So it says that it's this that's being praised in this text. It's this idea that things are devoid of intrinsic existence because of dependent origination. That is really the superior, most excellent teaching given by Buddha alone, by the Buddha. And then we find a quote from a text, the questions posed by Madrupa, the king of the Nagas. It's a sutra, and it states that whatever arises from causes does not arise inherently. That which relies on causes is said to be empty. Whoever understands emptiness is cautious. This is the translation I have of it. I'd like to see what cautious, they're translating cautious as. Give me one moment. Anyway, I'll look at it another time, but whoever understands emptiness is cautious is the way that it's translated. So it means that in looking at the Tibetan, it's so I'll just table it. Whatever arises from causes does not arise inherently. That which relies on causes is said to be empty. Whoever understands emptiness is cautious. So this goes back to this idea that whatsoever depends on conditions. Here it's whatever arises from causes. That is devoid of intrinsic existence, does not arise inherently, has no inherent existence, is free from inherent existence. So when we see this word emptiness is referring to empty of what? It's devoid of what? It's empty of having a true self. It's empty of true establishment. It's void of true establishment. True establishment doesn't exist. So emptiness, true establishment doesn't exist, is the same thing. So it's saying that what an amazing, wonderful sound to hear, this teaching on dependent origination, which is praised as the highest truth to know and most amazing truth to know. Rinpoche, the gare me do maro ma da me the gare sheda yapore. Okay, Dixon. Sar, Dixon Rinpoche. Kanga laso.
That didn't 사지들 송도 탐불로 송
Tambo.
댄데 송바 렌도지 초등하바 대차지
Shesum.
다니바 되니 저바 죄제도 템바데 워들레근도와 니바 되니 저바 죄제도 템바스
Okay, yeah, Nipa lesson.
저니 템바 제바 된 공고들에도
Lesso.
간도 송유 셰바나 탄진 정화 된 셰바 되니 켈라 저바이 저마르 죄비고 댄데 젠도 마통유 tenpa chuni te wajilan sangajin mati jambi tsi
Lesso.
wa teba dorendwa 간도 종의 셰바나 간도 종의 셰바나 탄진 청와 땡 셰바스 간도 종의 셰바 소소주 추노 대바주 주반진데 소소주 그걸로 탄진 청와 그때 추노 대바주 반진 땡진 땡보시라 요들어다
Leso, chipa.
탄진 청와 땡 셰바 되니 키라 주바이 드라마를 주비고스 추노 대바 마루발라 키비 키바달라 되니 키라 주바이 드라마를 주비고스 돈이라 키비 키바이나 돈이 두비 싫어디 네 엔드도 추노 대바 주 댄진노로 말베 댄진노도 댄진 제비뇨모노도 렐노도 그래 동엘노도 그래서
Okay, thingy de lo, tambo.
what the kalendo da.
Okay, so now we move on to number 2. Okay, so that finishes praising the pith of the teacher's pronouncements for its superiority. So it's just showing how wondrous and how superior it is because it is the instruction which allows one to recognize the lack of inherent existence or intrinsic nature. Okay, so number 2 is explanation of dependent origination taught and realized. No, I'm sorry. This is not right. Okay, so the first category is the praising the pith of the teacher's pronouncements for its superiority to others. Okay, that's the major heading. The first category is the supreme teaching is the excellent instruction given on dependent origination. So we've completed that. Now we're on the teaching that elaborates that essence. So now we get into these next 2 stanzas of 6 and 7. By grasping at it, the childish strengthen bondage to extreme views. For the wise, this very fact is the doorway to cut free from the net of elaborations. Since this teaching is not seen elsewhere, you are alone. You are the teacher. Like calling a fox a lion. For a Tirtika, it would be a word of flattery. And that's Tirtika is non-Buddhist. If you look it up just into English, it falls under non-Buddhist teachers as far as the Tibetan word that's being used here. So by grasping at it the childish, if you look at the literal in the Tibetan, it literally says, because of the way children apprehend, it reinforces their extreme grasping and bondage. So it's because of the way they apprehend. So it means very similar things, but if you break down the Tibetan itself, it really makes it even clearer. So we see by grasping at it the childish, strengthen bondage to extreme views. If you translated it at because of the way that children apprehend, and you could put parentheses reality, but it's not in the Tibetan. It just says apprehend, and it's inferred. It says it reinforces the bondage of extreme grasping. So here it says strengthen the bondage to extreme views. So it's very similar, but you get the idea in the Tibetan that it's this apprehension that strengthens it. The way that this childish apprehends. So what is this word childish? It's a word that means ordinary person, susuju. It means ordinary being, someone who is not a superior yet. So it's meaning someone who is not a superior by grasping at it, this childish strengthened bondage to extreme views. For the wise, this very fact is the doorway to cut free the net of elaboration. So the very fact that things are not truly established is what allows one to be freed from cyclic existence. So Rinpoche, Deni Kela Trupa Gare Chipa Dan Tadu Gare.
Kade.
The Trupa.
Deni Kela Trupa is.
Trupa. The Trupa, the Shitadang.
Deni Kela Trupa is Jawamala Trupa Sana. Denzi Trupa. Tupi Trupa. Ninang Trupa Mogo Ayuro.
Okay.
Denzil Trupa Coco Trupa. Chuna Deba Maruba, Deba Trupa Zimilo del Trupa Coco Trupa. Ninang Trupa. Chuna Deba Trupa Tama de la Trupa Coco. kundu chu choba sana choba chedan mabu koya yoro tandan de choba se denzin ko denzin choba malu chawa malu chobu gos choba denzin ko denzin.
So it's this elaborations. I'm trying to get the clarity on elaborations, and it's almost like elaborating on grasping. It's almost like that's what the elaboration is. It's either this extreme of, just as translators note, of nihilism or permanence, annihilation or permanence. Yeah, that must be the elaboration, is elaborating on the wrong. I would. So just always interested in what these words in the English and why we use elaboration. It doesn't mean anything to me necessarily without context. So cut free from the net of elaborations. If you look up elaborations in a Tibetan dictionary, it says the two extremes of nihilism or permanence. Since this alone is not seen elsewhere, you are alone are the teacher, like calling fox a lion. For Tirtaka, this word would be flattery. So this is now category 2. We're moving into the teaching that elaborates on that essence. Okay. Digsum Rinpoche.
Teni kila choba yi chawa malu chobu go teni kilas teni tomba ni la kebe keba teni na
Less so.
ane choba yi chawa malu chobu go ane tonyi la keba tele chö na taba choba temi denzin la soba chobi ane nyeba tu yuwa res. Ten de jen to matung tonyi matung jen da lu yuwa marwa ta shira mawa ta dodo patan senzang patan oma rangju patan shuru patu lu yuwa du marwa. Ten de jen to matung yu tenpa shesha chö nyi te tenpa shesha wa de shacha mandu boda chö kona res. Tenpa shesha chö nyi te waje la na senga jin mati jin la jambi se shirubi tenpa se shirubi tenpa True in the Geo Marba.
Less so.
Shirubi Temba to Temba Ain.
Mai.
Shirubi Temba to Temba. Patient is an Shirubi Temba Imbisher. Shirubi Tenju Imbishers, or to go say you are passing all.
Are they?
On the Shirubi Temba, what the Sukangalo Wall singing Metaban Robbers, Wajil singing. Shirubi Temba to Temba Metabate, Walla Sungi Metaban Rabores, Wajilan Sungajin, Medijan on Chambisis, Medi Temba to Zulea, Tembi me Tagares, Chambi, Wajilan Sungajin, Medijan on Chambisis, the Woolman de Value, the Terrain water.
So here, it says, let me just read it out of this. By grasping at the childish, strengthen bondage to extreme views. For the wise, this very fact is the doorway. So what it's saying is, for those scholars, understand that the wisdom realizing emptiness, the wisdom realizing dependent origination, is the opponent to, or the antidote to, the grasping at true establishment. So the dependent origination serves as an antidote. So those scholars know that what misconceptions have been elaborated on can be negated by this, by cutting. And it says that this understanding is the doorway that allows you to cut what binds you. And then it says that this isn't seen in other places. There's no. It says you are alone are the teacher. Now, we find in the collected works of Panchen Sonandrapa where it talks about that we can use this word teacher because there are teachers of Hinduism, teachers of other religions, but when we're using it in the term as a teacher with a capital T in this case, we can call others a teacher, but they aren't actual teachers. It's just like a name you would call, if you would, for instance, you called a fox a lion, for instance, or you just named a fox and said that fox is a lion. It doesn't make that fox a lion. It just is it's a word used. And it said it would be a word of flattery. In the Tibetan it says jambutsik. They're just nice words. It says when those non-Buddhist practitioners It's just saying that when we call, it says like when we call these others teacher, it's just nice words. So that's what it literally says. These are just nice words we use when we call anyone but Buddha the teacher. And it says, because you alone are the teacher. Buddha Shakyamuni is the only teacher. Why? Because he alone taught. Since this teaching is not seen elsewhere, there is no other person who has taught this, so how could they be the teacher? He's the only one who taught it, so he alone is the teacher. If someone else taught it, they would also be called teacher, but he is the only one who taught this subject, so he is the only teacher of this subject. So that's the point that's being made under this. And let's see if there's anything else in here interesting that in the Tibetan English maneuvering. It's Sampa. Chutsugatsu.
Tanyeba jeba shiva. What that to so sin do. Niba da jeba shiva.
Jeba shiva.
Jeba shiva.
Less so.
Jeba shiva then ma.
Enani.
Niba jeba shiva da kandu.
Shidan
shiru jag tumba. Tuane jule rebun jongwa tong yu tsuji. Tende kandu zong yu. Junde la dendu do shenbi. Chuta ma la Chuta la maju badans. Chuta la maju bas. Chuta ma maimba. Maju badan. Shuba la shira ma dudba senzamba. Uma batu zuyo marbe. Shira ma su sheba ngo ma na ne. Sheba ngo dendu kelen de ke do de ngo ma logorwa. Ngo ma na ne. Tabi Tenzin ji Chenmo ranju la gomba shindu tenba shebas shindu ten shebas derendwa
Okay, I see.
Tabi Tenzin ji Chenmo da ganda chuna de ba ruba de Tenzin de senjul tenba cha duares ranju la gomba shindu tenba shebe ne tende ne keba oma ba na la Tende tene keba oma ba na la Tenzin ji treba malu ba jubi godes. Keba oma ba oma tanju wa injiru ta oma ba la ane wade tende de treba Tenzin malu ba jubi godes. Tenzin ka tu godes. Oma ba deba ma ruba she godes na. An deba ruba Tenzin nuan de godes. Taba ruba ma yinba she runa Tenzin ji lo nuan de godes. Keba oma be chuna deba ma ruba she zang ane chuna deba ma ruba she lo de Tenzin li ente da nyeba rugres. Keba oma ba na la Tenzin ji trawa. Truba yi trawa ma luba jubi go tau tamba yinos. Trawa ma luba jubi tau tamba tuni dubi shero desu oma ba la. Trubi tanyin chitang truba saya nenu mamlu kode res. Trubi tanyin shi kunzu ji trubas. Kunzu tenpa tonda tenpa nyene kunzu lu kone yinjiro. Zila truba su la yuwares. Truba tang. Dendu ji truba. Dendu le truba su koya yuwares. Kunzu ki truba sana tuba re tuba. Tuba she su yue jans. Dene kunzu ji trubas. Denzin tuba re matu denzin tumen sheba yue marwa. De kunzu ji truba wo. Kundu ji truba was Tenzin li kundu truba malu chue se to de tuba chuna de truba Tenzin tuba ra tuba ta trawa pu jaung trawa pi trawa ta tuen ji trawa ni de la pi trawa ne za su shimo tongwa chi ji trawa ta bu yin las wel za tong soma su lu ya ge ta ba na ma de ye tena lu zalu ko za shulu ba dong ma se chin de ro tena jing a su ko ali ta ma to da kar na Tenzin ki chin de res Tenzin ki chin ne o de da bur se del ne tawa tenji tawa pi tawa da soma la so ba de su ngalo soma se go ba da nga so command ji no jala lu no ko shulu ndo ma ro de zin de ro Then I think as a call dream
up.
to what the
Tie
dancing dog in the rest.
it up.
Be draw Tasu Shir Mutua Chiji Tabu in la. Gone the Tembi dancing draw down Drachu to 2010 doors. Chuna the Batu dancing to what the be draw the thunder Drachu to the Bares. Then you double is.
Okay, so here, when we're looking at the various views, this is basically where I ended with my English, so it's actually good timing. When we're looking at this next part, category number 2, which is the teaching that elaborates on the essence, we find that the point being made here is that the middle way consequence view is the view that's being presented. So it's when the Rinpoche, the Ngetriwa Yure, Chipa Nam, the Shedamawa Do Depa, Shedamawa Do Depa, Sensampa Kanga, Uma Mayemba. Okay, so when we're speaking of the childish that apprehend incorrectly, it's not only speaking to non-Buddhists, it's speaking to all of the other tenet systems below that have an incorrect perception or apprehension of the nature of reality. So we look at who is being spoken to here. We say that the child is an ordinary being, an ordinary individual. This is referring to someone who hasn't seen emptiness. But here, the inference is that in order to do so, you have to have the middle way view. So it's saying that it's not possible that without the middle way view, you still have this apprehension, a childish apprehension, or the way a child would apprehend without the middle way consequence view. So it's coming to that conclusion. So going through this, it says that it is this, one has to do constant meditation on, when we look at all the various tenet systems that lead up to the middle way consequence school, we see that there's an enormous amount of information in that, concluding with this correct view of the middle way consequence, it's necessary to have repeated familiarization with the topic of emptiness according to the correct view. It's something that has to be done, Shintu Denbar, in order to really arrive at a stable understanding of it. It's something that has to be repeatedly done. It has to be done over and over again, because it's the mistaken way that we apprehend things which binds us. So it's, if we want, for instance, if we're going somewhere and we have items that we don't want to fall out of the car, we tie everything up very tight and we make sure that it cannot get loose. Likewise, the way we apprehend reality ties us up in this same way. It binds us to these extreme views, and the extreme views are what keep us within cyclic existence. So it's saying that without the correct perception of the middle way consequence school, without that correct view, you still apprehend in a childish way, which then strengthens bondage to extreme views, the extreme views of nihilism and grasping at permanence, or substantialism, it's translated as sometimes. So there is no teacher that is seen. So it says that we can't find this teaching given anywhere else by any other teacher than the Buddha. So why would we call a teacher who can't give a teaching a teacher? It would be like calling a fox a lion. It would be a nice thing to say, but it wouldn't be really true. So that's the point that's being made in this section. And then it breaks it down. I'm going to have to look it up. It says that there's two kinds of elaborations. It says there's Drupi, Danyeni, Shirkunzogi. So it seems like there's general conventional elaborations and Dendruki Trupa, and I'm not sure, established somehow truly established elaborations. So that's where we're going to probably end, because I'm going to need to get more into this vocabulary. But then the indicate.
다 간도 좀 셰바나스 셰바들레 네 오나 뭐마이 케바 다다장
Less so.
셰바 이나 미스 저보고 말베 간도 좀 셰바나스 셰바데네 케바 이나 루벤 이니다 루벤 슈란타 추지 잡아서 셰바 이나 미스 어디 셰바 이마 타원 조로스 주메데 데다네 네 응원된 셰바 되다만도 지다이야 네 셰바 칼라인스 다 그러면 인이다 그러면 주제 잡았다 슈롱라서 그걸로 간도 종이 셰바 나서 셰바디 지다 셰바 가네인데 말레스 시다 셰바 말레스 간도 종이 셰바 나서 셰바도 뭐 되게 셰바디스 니그레스 뭐수 때문에 셰바디 그러면 인이다 슈롱다 주제 잡아라서 봐 그래서 간도 종이 셰바 나서 셰바다 아이 제단 셰바 아이 많이 라우레스 셰바스 보고 주존하면 던질 거도 말이야 추다수장 셰바이 뭐 타원 주로现在준비돼스 근데다네 네 응원되지 셰바이만 되다 먼저 주던 예야 응원된 간도 중에 셰바 나시비 셰바데 이나 메이점에 네 저바도 용고하레스 예 제 셰바 칼라인스 셰바 마레스 오나 케바 오마 발라 뛰네 라제지 돈비 된 시메니비 뭐마나 셰바다 다주스 조도 여발라 곤소사
Then the Jutsen, the Sikh Mamba Yure, the Ngamang, the Damason, the Rinpoche, the Dudushe, the Dunda, Lopuninye, Dan Shulan, Dan Chodra, Shepa, Nam Yomari, Garishene Yomari, Mayan, Garishene Mayan.
Kanto Zungi Sheba na Sheba things in the Digres. Kanto Zungi Sheba na Jermaji, Kanto Zungi Sheba na Shebe, Mutank Sheba things in the Digres. 제단 셰바가네 마레스
nguden that
나도 좀 셰바나 시드 뭐소야 되 셰바드레스
de sheba de
things
okay
제단 셰바 마이스
less so so then it goes on to say then okay so now you're saying the childish you're saying using these words and now we're going to talk about great masters such as Basu Bandhu and Dharmakirti and Dignaga. So now are you calling those beings childish beings? So then the commentary says the way that they apprehend is childish. The view of the way that their apprehension is childish, but they are not childish. So it's not saying that it's saying that their mode of apprehension is a childish mode of apprehension, meaning it's the wise. It says the wise cut free of these elaborations. The wise. This very fact is the doorway to cut free from the net of elaborations. So we're saying that no, we don't call Dharmakirti, Dignaga, and Vasubandhu a child. We say that they apprehend in a childish way. So that's the point that's made in here. Dutsutsar. So this is how we'll slowly go through this text, and I'm going to look further into that point. There's more to the point about this childish and Dignaga, and I'm going to get all the vocabulary for it. But the main pith of the meaning is what we just did. Inji Ditsawa Yure, Dang the Lobsang Yatso Delpa Yure, Yene Delpa de Yomare. So if you could every day use this root text as a prayer, it'd be very helpful.
아론 더 가능해 되고스.
I myself use this as in my daily prayer.
더 가능해다 갈래갈래 된다도 내용으로스.
So if you use it in your daily prayer, then slowly by going over it again and again, you will understand the meaning of it.
저는 제바 유지 제바 다기다기지.
And then there are commentaries, and then we can slowly look at those as well. Yes. And there's also, you can take the book too, if there's any left, the harmony of harmony of emptiness and dependent origination, Geshe Lharampa Gyatso. There's a book here, you can take that home.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not this commentary though that we're using. We're not, this commentary that we're using is different. And a lot of the information is not in there. So Geshe Lobsang Gyatso is a great master and knows so many things and maybe expanded on it. And then the Shugden party killed him. They stabbed him, killed him in the middle of teaching. The Dorje Shugden party in the middle of teaching the Heart Sutra. He knew so much. He was a great knowledgeable master. They couldn't get him to stop talking against them, so they killed him. He was speaking out against the spirit of Dorje Shugden, saying it wasn't a practice, and the people who practiced it killed him.
That was harmful to the Dalai Lama, right?
It all has to do with China. It's the Chinese government funds this group. It's not. There's also an active discussion about this deity, but it's not something that we as Westerners should even get involved with. I say we as Westerners, when that topic comes up, say, that's your problem, not our problem. Your spirit deity, local deity culture, not ours. Don't bring them here. If there is a Shugden, leave them over there. Don't bring them here. Okay, so we'll do the concluding mandala. All this spirit worship, we just got to get it out of American Buddhism. Out of it. We have Buddhas that we become. We don't have these mystical deities that we dance around with at night and somehow fix us. We study emptiness. We study this hard stuff and think about it over and over again. That's the magic. There's no other magic. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I have collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Losang Drapa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well. With whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traversed 3 times, I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all benefit and happiness. All-powerful Avalokiteshvara, Tenzin Gyatso, may you stay until samsara's end. I pray for the long life of the precious Khensur Wandak, upholder of scriptural and realizational doctrines, spiritual friend who trained extensively in the 5 great philosophical texts, exceptional wisdom and perseverance. Tuji Rinpoche, Gutsi Shapi Denonan.